the first thing that I always hear from the customer is, Gareth, we don't have skills. There's such a shortage of skills. When you look at people that are actually earning well in the papers and all that, IT security is one of those. So everyone is wanting to get into it, not only because it's a well-paid job, also because of the way that it can enhance your career, bring down quite a few syndicates, specifically in Nigeria, which is one that I can mention because we work very closely with Interpol.
Welcome to ITWeb TV. My name is Chris Treasure. Today in the studio joining me is Gareth Redelinghuys. He's the Country Managing Director, Africa Cluster for Trend Micro. Welcome, Gareth. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thank you, Chris, for allowing me on your show. Looking forward to it, most definitely.
Excellent.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. So before we dive down into the murky waters of cybersecurity, please could you tell us a little bit more about your role at the company and what your responsibilities are?
Perfect. Great. Thanks, Chris. So, as you mentioned, Country Managing Director. I'm responsible for the whole Sub-Saharan Africa, as you mentioned, the African cluster.
Yeah.
So we have around about 20 staff in South Africa specifically. The leads there look after or an extension of the rest of the divisions within the country. So we have 20 people in South Africa. There's 5 in Weka, more specifically in Nigeria. In Kenya, we have 3. Then in SADC, which is also part of our territory, and Indian Ocean Islands, we have Jyotish, who looks after that area. That's pretty much where I fit in. And the way I see my role is more about working with extremely intelligent people, which I absolutely love. But more specifically, my job is to connect the dots, if I can put it that way, using all the talents at their best, making sure that everyone is at their highest performance, pulling people in at the right time to obviously get projects completed in time, and not just completed in time, but being competent in terms of making sure that it is the best that we deliver to our customers.
Right. So it's also about unifying the resources that you've got available to be able to drive that service delivery level into the market.
Most definitely. And we actually pride ourselves in this in the market. So, it was easy to move from 5 employees 4 years ago to 20, which I've mentioned now, just in our territory. And it's quite easy to say we've grown by 15 people in such a short duration, but wasn't a case of just going out and employing whoever put their hand up first or, oh, okay, you look like a good fit, let's try you out. It was looking and doing due diligence, making sure that that person first was a great culture fit, job fit, that they wouldn't come in and be disruptive, more specifically making sure that they had all those credentials that we were looking for. Right. So luckily, we have found the very best SE team that we've added on that are definitely shaping and giving us the platform that we need. Excellent. To give the relevance to our customers. Yeah.
No, that's very, very good and interesting. So I'm going to delve into now the cyber security situation, and we've got so many stats. I'm going to just quote one of the stats, well, some of the stats that I've got from Trend Micro's 2023 mid-year cybersecurity threat report, so your own threat report. And between January and June this year, Trend Micro blocked 86 million email threats, 4 million malicious URLs, over 4,000 malicious mobile apps. So these were all targeted at SA businesses. So there are so many stats around, as you know, about cybersecurity, but from an end user perspective, the bad guys seem to be getting a lot more brazen, a lot more daring, more sophisticated, and more organized. And the good guys seem to be trying to catch up, but not quite getting there. Would you agree with that?
Most definitely, Chris. And that's the biggest thing that we're working with on a daily basis. So we're always one step behind, and it is extremely hard to keep relevant. As you mentioned yourself, the guys out there are just so clever. They're actually using gangs to gang up now to get out and to have, these increased syndicates that are getting a lot smarter. To add to that, there's also AI, which is kind of a double-edged sword at the moment. So you can use AI for defending, or you can use it for attacking. So, the security vendors just need to get so much smarter in terms of how they're actually going to leverage off that. So, we need to fight fire with fire. As you mentioned, the stats are alarming. I mean, 80 million plus email compromises. This is probably still the biggest one that we're seeing. Ransomware, yes, it's there. It's actually dropped surprisingly. Email, definitely on the rise. And that's mostly due to things called BEC, which is business email compromise, which I'm sure we can touch on in more detail a little later.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's so many things that are emerging from the growth of data. And you mentioned AI, and it actually is very interesting because last week, I think it was, that Elon Musk spoke with British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and described AI as one of the most disruptive forces in human history. He also apparently said, reportedly said, that he envisages a future where there's no job is going to be needed because of AI. So, I mean, while we're on the subject of AI, what is your view on it going forward, and specifically as it pertains to cybersecurity?
Yeah. The way I see it, as I mentioned, double-edged sword. I think we just need to take a step back and educate users more specifically on what to do and what not to do. So what not to do, especially with AI. I mean, you've got tools out there or technologies which are ChatGPT, is taking things like your source code, publishing it on there, and actually getting ChatGPT to help you and be more sophisticated, to round things up better, to get better analytics out of it. Because once you put that kind of information on ChatGPT or on these platforms, you never know if it's going to be used against you. Can you imagine you've got your competitor that's doing a product or a service similar to you? You've now gone and put your entire source code on ChatGPT, and you now have divulged what you have as your trade secrets, where they can very easily get hold of this too. The other side of the spectrum is too that, once you have all this information, to get it back is virtually impossible. It's kind of like with media, where we say, be careful of what pictures you post, because once it's out there on the net, you can never get it back. And the exact same thing stems from AI, more specifically with ChatGPT, to be cognizant of what you're actually putting out there. So definitely something to consider.
I mean, are we looking at, going forward, and it's speculative and it's hypothetical, but are we looking at a scenario where AI is used to defend or attack other AI? I mean, are we looking at robotic warfare or cyber warfare, and where the technology takes the lead and the humans follow? Or is that a bit far-fetched?
Yeah. So it depends who you speak to. Yeah. Everyone has their version of what they assume it would be. All I know is when our leaders abroad speak to us about AI, we need to invest in these technologies. We need to take advantage of them. Those that don't are definitely going to be left behind. And again, it's all how you're going to embrace it, how you're going to use it. And it's kind of a scenario of fighting fire with fire. So when you do start looking into these, you actually have to start incorporating those technologies into your actual product set on the fly. So we've spoken about in the past machine learning, and that's where you actually had to get smart on figuring out how do devices do all these things that they do. The new one now is artificial intelligence, and again, making sure that you're relevant and you stay up to speed, because again, it really is a double-edged sword, where defenders are obviously Trend Micro as well as the other security vendors, and the attackers are your cyber criminals out there. And as I mentioned, those gangs are getting bigger and bigger, and now also have these tools that just make it so much harder for us to keep up.
Gareth, there's no doubt about the disruptive force that AI represents. And I'm just thinking going forward in terms of your awareness for end users, your employees, how are companies going to balance that with their need to innovate and compete going forward?
Great. So, as we've mentioned, COVID, digitization, that's the front and center. Since that, it's changed everything, and it's pretty much put everything upside down and shaken it by its ankles. And those are the metrics that we're using to obviously safeguard customers. So before, you'd have your large organizations where you'd have people sitting in offices that are protected, that have adequate security. The security's been there for the last however many years. Now, all of a sudden, you got people that can't go into the work environment anymore, that are working from home. So that's changed everything, the way we do things, the way you're logging on. And it's just become so difficult. What we've done and what we recommend now is to start looking at the attack surface risk management. So ideally what that means is, if you look at it on an X or a Y axis, so all the assets that you have within your organization, your desktops, your servers, your cloud, your network, your containers, your storage, all those assets, and on a Y-axis, vertical axis, is things that are of a risk nature. So denial of service, cross-site scripting, ransomware, malware, worms, Trojans, all these things. And where you match them all up, you start seeing very quickly where the gaps are. And that's where we suggest that you definitely start spending more attention. Unfortunately, we've got to the stage now where we've gone to a totally different scale. And, me, myself, when I walk into a customer's environment, the first thing that I always hear from the customer is, Gareth, we don't have skills. There's such a shortage of skills. And the biggest problem there is when these organizations actually want to skill up their staff and pay for them to get acquainted with these security tools, they actually go, they do their course, they come back, and they're worth so much more, where other companies start targeting these people and taking them from the people that have actually invested in these types of things. If I can expand on that a bit more, what Trend Micro is doing to help out with this type of behavior is, globally, we have a CPITS program. Locally in Africa, we have a program for learners. So we go to universities, we'll maybe look at taking 5 in South Africa, 5 in Nigeria, 5 in Kenya. And what we do is we actually skill these people up from a security background to give them even more security, where they learn how to use our tools. And we actually go to our partners and to our customers that are looking for these security people to actually enable them and help them out. And what this does is it's adding to it. And, it's on a very small scale. If you look at the skill shortage that we actually have globally on security, it's over 3 million people. So it's a small way of contributing, but it is a way of contributing nevertheless.
I mean, do you feel, what is the reaction from these institutions that you're sourcing, the students from? Is there a willingness and a desire to get into cybersecurity?
Definitely a willingness and desire. When we go to the universities or to the colleges and we actually interview people, at first we'd think we'd have maybe a line of 4 or 5 people. There are actually people queuing to take advantage of this. Not to say that it's the highest paying job, but when you look at people that are actually earning well in the papers and all that, IT security is one of those. So everyone is wanting to get into it, not only because it's a well-paid job, also because of the way that it can enhance your career to further yourself as an individual. One of the things we pride ourselves at Trend Micro is furthering yourself as an employee. So, getting and staying relevant, up to speed on what's actually happening out there in the environments. Also to look at investing as yourself as a person, and not only investing in yourself, but also helping the community. So just like I've spoken about going to further educate people, we also have other programs for disaster. You get your tsunamis, you get flooding. We as Trend Micro actually take people that we have in our own environments, send them over to these areas where there's flooding or disaster recovery, help them rebuild the communities and all that stuff. So, from a culture perspective, definitely helping out. And that's where Trend Micro is so different. I'll give you an example. when you look at a normal vendor, it's always first is the customer, second is the shareholder, third is the employee. With Trend Micro and the culture, it's slightly different. So first the customer, second the employee, and third the actual shareholder. Now, to put this into perspective and just elaborate more on what I mean by saying that, when the pandemic, COVID hit, our CEO, Eva Cheng, got on the call with every employee, 7,500 people. And what she said to us, guys, I understand there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know where this is going. We don't know what this means for everyone. I, as your CEO, want to ensure you that for the next 3 months, every single person will get their salary in full. If you're a quota carrier or commission earner, you will get 75% of your salary up front, whether you do nothing or something. The only thing I want in return from you as the employees is to make sure that you are there for your customers, that you make sure that you help them, and that you are there to make sure that they are looked after too, and you provide adequate security. And again, the change of how people were now going to work from home, for us to educate very quickly on how we were going to help them out. So from a culture perspective, just to, put that there, that it's very different. And, I welcome anyone to come into our office and see what we're all about. And we love having people in our environments.
So it's a very interesting and sort of innovative way of approaching an uncertain situation. The other thing that Trend Micro is known for is also its research. And I believe that the research you have collaborated with law enforcement agencies, Interpol being one of them, using the research to help them in their efforts to follow up on and stamp out cybercrime. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So, it's no secret that cybersecurity is number 5 of the global list of, misfortune. So number 1 is energy crisis. Number 2, I think, is cost of living. Number 3 is rising inflation. Number 4 is shortage of food. And number 5 is cybersecurity and infrastructure damage that's caused from it. So, it's something that we definitely relevant in terms of, where it's going. So, yes, and number 5 being cybersecurity. We work very, very closely with law enforcement, globally FBI, more locally with Interpol. So we've actually helped come and bring down quite a few syndicates, specifically in Nigeria, which is one that I can mention because we worked very closely with Interpol. So there's Operation Killer Bee, that was Nigerian. What they were pretty much doing there is intercepting invoices. And, one organization would send an invoice to another organization. They would intercept the invoice and do something as small as changing the banking details on that and sending it through, phoning the organization saying, we've sent you the invoice. If you pay it within 3 days, we'll give you an extra 5%. Now, when you're talking of invoices of over $20 million, etc., 5% used. What is the user going to do? They're going to pay it as quick as possible. There's also African Cyber Surge 2. That was a syndicate that we've brought to book. That was on phishing as a service. So again, I spoke about all these gangs getting together. They were about to attack over 70,000 users with ransomware, which we caught and obviously brought them to book. So that's just 2 examples, but there's many, many, and for obvious reasons, we can't mention anything. But these 2 that I've spoken about have actually been on the news. Again, the one thing that we really want to get across to our customers is the user and security awareness. So, we're always going around to our users saying what you should do and what you shouldn't do. But it's more a case of educating them on what they shouldn't do. So, we have fish simulation exercises where you do a ransomware campaign, you send it to each employee and you see what's the actual user awareness like, what's the maturity of each person in terms of how they're going to act. Once they get that email, are they going to click on it? And once they click on it, how deep into it are they going to go? When it says, give me your username and password, are you actually going to put that in? Right? Or give me your banking details. All these things are the awareness that we need to give to our customers. There's many different ways of doing it. So do the actual course, give them the material, tell them what to look out for, what to click on, what not to click on. If you're not sure and the email that you're getting you've never seen or you weren't expecting it, just leave it. If it was important, someone will resend it. So definitely that user awareness. Some of the other campaigns that you can do within organizations is the user awareness that I've spoken about now. So have those phishing campaigns, have it within your organization. When a user gets it and unfortunately clicks on it, educate them further. Make them watch a video. After they've watched the video on what to do and what not to do, maybe have a 5-questionnaire on why you shouldn't have done that, or did you understand what I was doing? And then make sure that the line manager afterwards understood that they unfortunately didn't pass the fish simulation, but they did watch the video, they did do the exam, and they're now aware of what it is. It just raises the awareness so much so that everyone is aware of what to do and what not to do.
I mean, the market as well is it has so many different kinds of or levels of security maturity in organ. There's a great variation in terms of maturity, right? And also the companies have different size budgets and resources. I mean, some companies have the expertise and the resources to be able to establish security operation centers. A lot don't, but you can sort of bring it down to a situation where you can implement certain security measures that are not not expensive, and they're not resource intensive. Basic stuff that companies can implement to improve their security posture.
Most definitely, yes, Chris. So what we look at is how we've changed and evolved things at Trend. Not to say that our competitors aren't following, but this is the direction that we've taken. So we don't look anymore at best of breed solutions just on one aspect. So say on the endpoint, or solutions where you're good at a few things. Trend Micro's taken it to the next level, which is now called platform. So we provide platform, and essentially what that means is when we spoke earlier about having your assets, so your endpoints, your servers, your cloud, your network, your IDS, your IPS, your cloud storage, having protection for all those things is the new way of going about and what you offer customers. What they're really liking about this is consolidation. So when you look at a platform, you don't have one specific product with an agent and a management console, or solutions with many different agents and many different consoles. Yes. With a platform now, what you're looking at is having as little as one or maybe two agents with one management console. So what this does is it's a lot cheaper for organizations to invest in this consolidation platform, because you skill your users up on working on one platform and not multiple platforms, and offering the luxury of not having many different agents and many different consoles, taking the burden away of getting in, logging on to all these things. The other thing that this does is it gives you more consolidation in terms of the information that you get. So if something is found on your endpoint, you go to your endpoint, you look at how did this get there? And then you have to work all the way back to how it actually got into your organization. When you got a platform, which we've spoken about, all that information's there. So it's not looking at one platform, logging out, looking at another one. It came in here, okay, it came through email. Let's log out here, let's go to email. All of that is visible to you. And again, the most important thing is having the platform which is going to save you time, energy, and money. We both know that when you are a victim and unfortunately you get compromised, and we always say to our customers, it's not if, it's when. Everyone will at some stage or another be victim to this. And it's all about how quickly you react to these types of things. And giving customers the platform that I've spoken about is just the way that we're getting a lot of customers saying, what do you do? How do you do that? And that's why Trend Micro has taken this stance or this position to offer now a platform to customers.
So there's a lot we can discuss about cybersecurity. There's so many avenues of discussion, points we can still raise, but time is not on our side. Please, in conclusion, just tell me briefly, what is Trend Micro's position in terms of competition?
Great. So our CEO, Eva Cheng, says that we don't have competitors in terms of the other security vendors. Our competitors are the cyber criminals out there. You'll see all the vendors are getting to a stage now where we're all starting to open each other's APIs. And what that means is we can help each other circumvent and mitigate further down the line. I'll give you an example. Trend Micro no longer is of the opinion that we find all these things and we're going to keep these little secrets to ourselves. Within the operation, if we find that something's getting through from a firewall perspective that we've picked up, be it Palo Alto, a checkpoint, or a Fortinet, we can actually send off a bandage pattern to those technologies to help block that. And where that makes it better and easier for us is if we can block things at the perimeter, it just gives us less work to do internally in the network, and vice versa, where these technologies are working together. The other thing that we pride ourselves from a competitive perspective is something called ZDI, Zero Day Initiative. So this is something which is a bug bounty program. And essentially what it is, we get ethical hackers to hack certain environments. And when they give us the actual vulnerability, we pay them. So I think in the last 4 months, there was one in Toronto. We paid out over $1 million for these vulnerabilities. And what's really great about this is we take those vulnerabilities and we build it within the Trend solutions to mitigate from day zero when we actually find out about it. Once we are protecting against it, we'll feed that information to the other vendors. I think with regards to what vulnerabilities Trend Micro finds is probably just under 2/3 of all known vulnerabilities. I think we're sitting at 64% of Trend Micro contributing to zero-day targeted attacks. And again, as I mentioned, what makes us relevant is we have those vulnerabilities in terms of something called virtual patching. So you've got information traversing in and out your network, and those vulnerabilities that we are now protecting you against, we block them. When you do your updates and your patch cycles, obviously then it's going to circumvent and protect you. But from the time of when you actually know about the vulnerability till you get it, till you test and implement it, that duration is where Trend Micro will actually cover you from a security perspective.
So it's collaboration, shared knowledge, shared resources. It bodes well for a more protective, secure sort of industry going forward, does it not?
100%, Chris. Just lastly, what I'd like to mention is we've spoken about the security, we've spoken about, user awareness. The last thing that we really need to cover is the extra measures or steps that you can take within your organization. So definitely also customers need to start looking at two-factor authentication. So you log on with your username, with your password. Two-factor authentication is just going to make sure that you are who you say you are. So very, very important also just to make sure that customers look into that.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time, Gareth. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
So thanks very much for viewing and clicking through to ITWeb TV. Keep watching. Thank you very much.